Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into a brand new episode of Modern Warzone Weekly Podcast. This is episode number, I think, 16, and I've got Dirty Doug Dagnabbit with me as per usual. But today, we are joined by the one and only, the wonderful, the mystical, the magical JGOD. JGOD, thanks for joining us today.
What's going on?
Ready
to rock and roll.
Yeah, this is going to be a really exciting episode. Of course, as you all know, the brand new Caldera Warzone Pacific map is here, and both JGOD and Modern Warzone, or Doug, got a chance to play together early, and we're going to talk about their experience and everything that they've seen thus far. The actual game drops for all of you that have Vanguard tomorrow, or December 8th, and then on December 9th, it is free to play for everyone, okay? So let's just jump straight into it. Doug, JGOD, hope you guys are doing well. Let's talk about your experience. Let's just start with, how was it? I mean, what's just a general, like, up, down, sideways? Like, how did it feel?
I watched your video, or at least parts of it, JGOD, some of them that you put out today on your main and your second channel. And I agree with what you said. Like, I know that most of the community is always like, oh, they're just in the honeymoon phase. Well, we understand that there's a real thing as a honeymoon phase. But I would, like, try to liken how I felt playing the game today as like a kid on Christmas, just like you said. Just it's been waiting on it so long, my man.
Yeah, that happened a lot when we were playing. I know Spiro said it multiple times. He's all like, I just can't stop grinning and cheesing, you know? And I think a lot of people were experiencing that same thing. You can see the hype in the Discord when people were typing after the fact, because obviously we were in our own Discord call. And then you had a bunch of people just typing everything. They were gassing up each other. I saw like all kinds. Somebody would make a play within the game. I could look through the thread and be like, oh, damn, somebody was going off or whatever. Because obviously once you're eliminated, you still watch out the entire match. So a lot of people had different POVs where they were gassing people up that they saw. And people were just enjoying the map. And it seemed like everyone was hyped.
Yeah, that's based on the consensus I saw in all the YouTube videos I watched this morning. Everybody was feeling the same, and everybody was really hyped. Let's talk about what you guys were actually able to do. So maybe, JGOD, if you want to break down, I know you guys had a chance to play a couple different game modes of kind of what will be released. From what I heard, you guys did not get a chance to play the what I'll call normal Caldera Battle Royale, where you can use the Modern Warfare weapons and the Cold War weapons. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So basically, there was a couple separate things. Probably about 12 hours before, well, maybe, yeah, about 10 to 12 hours before, they basically said, hey, if you make sure you log into your account early, all that stuff. And then people were able to jump in and kind of navigate around the map. And that's where some of the gameplay people posted was basically in a pregame lobby that didn't start because there was only like 20 people in it. Not everyone was there. So there was that where people could experience it. And then on the day of the first match, we had a queue in. Basically, they just tell you, hey, queue into this mode. It's not like you have to pick whatever. It's literally queue into this mode or you're not going to get in. And then that's it. And then you kind of have a small window to queue in. We queued into Vanguard Resurgence, which is basically like mini Royale with Rebirth rule set. So there's a fire sale, I think, at a certain point. There's, respawns as long as somebody's alive. If you loot, kill, down, whatever, that cuts down the timer. And then I'm pretty sure we had Resurgence before on regular Verdansk, but in case for anyone doesn't know what's going on, that's basically how the mode is. And then around Zone 5, I mean, it's faster zones because it's supposed to be like Rebirth Island. And then after Zone 5, respawns cut off. And if you die, you're eliminated pretty much. Free loadout drops in still like normal. And that's kind of how that mode was. And then we did 2 Vanguard Royale quads, which is the limited rule set, where it does restrict some of your loadout items. The first one didn't restrict them, but this one does restrict them, where when you go to create a class, it'll have stuff X'd out. Like if you're playing the CDL playlist, where it just says this is banned, you won't be able to use it. And then we played 1 Plunder, and then we played another Vanguard Royale quads. And then that was pretty much it.
Cool. Sounds like a great day. Doug, I know you guys got a chance to play all those different game modes. The Vanguard one in particular was super curious to me, and I have a lot of questions, and as well as the entire community does. But I know the big question mark were these planes. Did you get a chance to fly any of the planes, Doug?
Yeah, I crashed them more than I flew them, but I figured it out after a while. Yeah, I actually did fly the planes. I can say this, they're not really as game breaking as I thought they would be.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of mainly due to the difficulty that it takes to fly them. And the main issue is that in almost any other game where you fly, like Battlefield or even like some of the jet fighter games that are made specifically for it, your sticks are always inverted. So when you pull down, you pull up, like the plane goes up like a real plane would. But that's not how it is on here. So it's like you're kind of like fighting with your own brain to try to to take off properly and not wreck the plane before you even get off the ground. They do a lot of damage when they hit people. Like if you hit somebody with 3 or 4 bullets on a strafe run, they're going down. They can do a lot of damage to vehicles. I got in the dogfight and posted my POV of that on that was in our first game that we won, because we won all of them. But yeah, we got in a dogfight. I ended up taking down the plane. There's actually something really interesting that me and JGOD found the night before like the actual play session started, because like he said, you were allowed to queue into the pregame lobby, and that's where most people did their exploration. You could go and do anything on the map you wanted pretty much, and they had planes in the pregame lobby you could fly, yada yada. And I just queued in, and then I ended up on a team with Iceman Isaac. And then JGOD ended up meeting me at the capital, like the main city of the map. And we discovered something, and it was that the planes have a constant UAV. But this is okay, just stick with me until I finish describing this, because it's weird how.
Well, I don't know.
It's weird.
Well, also to be on top of that, that's also pregame lobby, so it might work a little bit different in game.
It did. When I went back through and checked my gameplay, right? Okay, I was checking. So in that first game, I remember I asked you guys, when I was flying the plane, I said, is it pinging people for you guys? Do you guys have a UAV? And you guys all said no. But in our pregame lobby, we saw that we had a UAV if anybody on our team was flying the plane. So clearly it worked different. But do you remember late that night when I told you that whenever Iceman would fly over, you'd get that big red triangle above your head?
Yeah.
That was happening for you guys when you were on the ground, or something like that was happening, because when I went back through my gameplay and slowed it down while I was flying the plane, I kept getting plus 25 plane assist, something. It was like basically like a UAV assist type thing.
Oh, okay. That
so
makes
it must
sense
still
then.
be working in some capacity, but it's not working in the same way that it was working in the pregame lobbies where me and you were like, why in God's name is this a thing?
I think also, obviously, with it being a brand new mode and all this stuff, I think there's going to be tons of features that are buggy, because this is Warzone. We did have a building that we went into in a regular match that we didn't experience running around, and you couldn't crouch or prone in this building. Like you just wouldn't.
Interesting.
Like it was very weird
behind why it was doing that. I think so when you're in water, you know how it's not trying to let you it won't let you go prone. I think it was thinking we were in water.
I don't know. It was some bunker where it was just buggy, but as soon as you walked out, boom, like you're normal. Like what the heck? Yeah.
Weird.
So
I know there was a couple other bugs I saw. I saw the new bounty that I can't remember what it's called now off the top of my head, but it's the new
big
bounty.
Game.
Yeah, big game bounty. I saw Iceman's video. They got the big game bounty and it pings Sally as a dog, and Jomo goes, well, that's not right. and it said over on the left that if you killed him, they would receive -$1.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's funny.
So I think there's a couple bugs here and there, but okay. So really quickly about the planes, felt pretty strong, didn't seem game breaking. Was it a 1-passenger or a 2-passenger plane, and what was kind of the situation with that?
It's a 2-passenger. The thing is that I was expecting the second passenger to have their own automated gun or something that you control. It's not like that. You're pretty much just along for the ride with your primary weapon out. Iceman was flying around doing his whole pilot thing, and I was literally getting motion sickness.
Well, also to tack onto that, the planes are kind of paper thin if people use those anti-air guns.
That's what I was gonna ask. I saw there are these massive anti-air cannons around the map that are stationary, and there's actually some mounted on the back of vehicles, which is pretty crazy. And it's what, like a 3 or 4 hit on the planes or something like that?
Yeah, it's basically like a 4 hit, I think is what they were saying that first night, because we got in early, and like I said, Iceman had been flying that plane around for 2 hours. He was trying to do I don't want to say the word, the Battlefield thing where you throw the jet and you land back in it after you blow somebody. He was trying to do that. I don't think he could get it done though.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
I guess the big question for me, and then we'll talk about mechanics a little bit more intensively. I just get really excited about the planes. Is I know the planes are only in the Vanguard content only game mode, and I know you guys didn't get a chance to play the normal game mode, but because they're not in the what I'll call normal game mode, where Modern Warfare weapons and Cold War weapons are in there, do we know or do we think there's going to be any aircraft? Like, are there going to be helicopters? Because if there's no planes, I didn't see obviously
Plunder was full game. You could have used anything.
Oh, okay.
You could have used a kilo, but no one did. I mean,
yeah.
We're trying to get content. People got 2 years of that.
Should we tell them, JGOD, about what is in the plunder mode? The helicopter's not the one we have right now.
They have the mounted helicopter with the guns on him.
The attack helicopter.
In plunder?
Hopefully third time's the charm.
Dude, I haven't tweeted about it yet. I was saving it for the podcast.
Some people did notice on the tweet, because I tweeted a clip because in Plunder I ran into Espresso and Immortal.
Yeah.
And then they threw the heli at me, but those helis did have the gun on them. And it's like, bro, could we just give up on that? We've had 3 invincibility glitches or whatever.
Yeah.
Just like throw it out the way. I don't see one person complaining, hey, when are you going to bring those back in?
Yeah.
Like,
so
I'm
there
gonna be
are
honest,
helicopters.
I feel like the AA trucks with the AA guns on them, I feel like any gun that you like mount on Warzone that's like a stationary weapon, I feel like they all probably suffer from that same bug, and I wouldn't be surprised to find that out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's probably true. We'll see a lot of invisibility glitches in the next coming weeks. But okay, so you've got helicopters with guns, and then the AA guns on the vehicles, are those in Plunder as well?
No, that was a weird thing that I noticed when I went back and looked, that all of the Plunder vehicles are not Vanguard vehicles.
They're all
the current ones.
Verdansk.
Yeah, you have like
really?
a regular Bertha, you have SUVs, yeah, all that stuff.
Oh, weird. So that means probably, we don't know, but probably the normal Battle Royale, what I'm calling normal again, is just the traditional Caldera where you can use anything. They're going to have the Verdansk vehicles, whereas the Vanguard only mode will have only Vanguard vehicles. That's super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would imagine
exactly
that'll be
how it
like
works.
that for a couple days, and then once somebody finds the heli glitch, they'll put the normal heli back in.
Yep,
Yeah.
I definitely think that's what's going to happen.
Well, let's talk about the actual movement mechanics and the way the game was played. I know I watched a lot of y'all's videos, but maybe not everyone has. So, JGOD, let's talk about like engine. I mean, I know you had mentioned it probably feels a little bit more like a traditional Warzone rather than Vanguard, which was the big question mark for everybody.
Yeah. Like I said, I had the game loaded, but it couldn't do anything. Like everything was locked except for that tutorial. So like the clip I posted on Twitter, I'd ran that tutorial probably like 12 times, just kind of running through and seeing how I wanted to like show some different things in it and kind of getting the overall feel. It didn't feel exactly like Modern Warfare, but it could have had to do with the weapons, right?
Yeah,
like
sure.
the weapons just might be heavier. And we won't really know, but I don't think they could really modify that much stuff, because then you really have to rebalance the entire game in terms of weapon mobility, which doesn't really work. I don't know. So overall, I felt like it was a little bit slower, but maybe they just tweaked those guns to have different mobility, because even the bunny hop didn't have like the same violence you can get out of a bunny hop on some of the Cold War weapons.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that you brought that up, Gojj, because I wanted to ask JGOD about it as well. When we were on it early, before we were technically the playtest started, we could do the tutorial mode, like the same one that's like in Verdansk. So you go through, you do the objectives, whatever, you kind of get a feel for it. In my opinion, what we felt in that training mode was way different than the actual game felt movement wise when we got into the lobbies, because we were both talking about it that night and we noticed a clear difference in timing to bunny hop.
Yep.
And as well, and we also, I remember telling you that the first thing you said to me was, it's like a mix of Vanguard and Modern Warfare, but
Yep,
not
that's
too
what it
much
felt
of
like.
either. That's what it felt like to me too, but that's not how it felt when we got in the real game. It even had like a little bit of a delay to when your tac sprint started after you double slide canceled, but that's not how it was in the build that we played once we actually dropped in. It's almost like, and also JGOD noticed he was like trying to test out damage numbers, and all the damage numbers just made no sense in that mode. And then when we got dropped into the actual map and in a pregame lobby, the numbers were way different that he found. So I think that mode, like I kind of feel like that they were almost going to go to like a hybrid.
That's what they were going to do.
They scrapped it, and they scrapped it.
Interesting. I wonder if they had
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think they realized that people were going to complain, even though the casuals would be happy. that people weren't going to be able to, you know, like let's be honest, anybody listening to this podcast, the best way to be a cracked gamer at Warzone is to break other players' cameras, which is technically like you're breaking the game with your movement because you're abusing a system that's not even meant to be there. So it was almost like they wanted to take that out, and then they backed out of it at the last second because everybody's gotten so used to the crutch of it that they just couldn't fathom the idea of the movement system being different.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw a lot of people talking about how it still felt like Modern Warfare 2, like mostly, and I'll be curious to see what the general public's reaction will be to that. Especially on Twitter, etc. But that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so talked about the game modes, talked about the vehicles. What did you guys think about the other Vanguard vehicles that you got a chance to use, like the cargo truck and the new Jeep and all of that?
I used the cargo truck. That was the only thing I used on the first landing. I landed a little bit further away from my team because I was trying to go do a supply run. I ended up in that vehicle. It felt like a slow Bertha, but it's the 2-seater Bertha. So. Okay. I don't know. I didn't get shot at once.
Second person in there?
Yeah, that's the difference with that one. You can see swap.
Oh, I did not notice that when I was driving it. I was solo when I had it.
Yeah.
Did you drive? Doug, did you drive the new Jeep?
I drove every vehicle in the first game. I drove the AA truck. I drove the tactical Jeep or whatever. I drove like 3 separate planes and blew myself up in 2 of them. And then what's the last one? We got the truck, we got the Jeep. Oh, and then the new Bertha for Vanguard.
Yeah.
And the biggest difference that I noticed is that the Vanguard cargo truck, as they call it, it's like legitimately indestructible. Like you cannot shoot from like currently it's almost impossible to like get a 1-hit kill on somebody with a sniper from behind the Bertha because of that like bulletproof grading or whatever.
Oh, that's blocked.
Yeah, on these ones, it's even worse. Like you don't even get a hit marker. You don't touch them.
Interesting. And when you say there's a passenger seat, can you shoot out of the passenger seat, or is it like you're just riding?
I think you can shoot because you have your gun in first person.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. Yeah, I saw the Jeep, which I don't know. This is all like an interesting conversation for me, but I think the overarching conversation will really be, is the Vanguard only battle royale going to be more played than the traditional battle royale where you can use Modern Warfare weapons and Cold War weapons, etc.? Probably not, which means we're going to have all of the old Verdansk vehicles anyways. So half the stuff we're talking about is like only for like a limited time, probably not limited, but a single game mode that it won't be used for most traditional gaming. I'm not so sure. I mean, what did you guys get to read on whether or not they were going to be pushing the Vanguard mode more, or do you think it'll be like, hey, everybody's going to play general battle royale?
I was of the same thought process of you, Gojj, that nobody would care. It would be like a week-long thing, and then they would do away with it. But after playing it, it's a lot of fun. I think that it could have some longevity, and I could see people wanting to go to it to not have as many crazy things. Like there's gonna be like 120 guns now.
Yeah.
I could see people playing that because the planes add like a cool little aspect to it, and as well as we didn't mention this, but in the Vanguard Royale, in the blog post it said that after every circle there's like an open world event or whatever, like a public event like they have, and they were telling the truth. I mean, we had resurgence mode, we had a new one that was called resupply, to where I had just looted the supply box. Yeah, resupply happened, and then it reset it right in front of my face. Like I watched it do it.
Yeah. I think they had that in the limited time Warzone game mode that we just had like a week, 2 weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah, were you gonna say something, Jay?
Yeah. Also, I think that's why they had. Remember we had the fire sale back to back. And we thought it bugged.
Yeah, we were like,
I think it was another event, like starting again.
Yeah. That's
like
exactly what
it was just like the RNG rolled and it said, you know what, we're gonna have another fire sale, because it literally ended and then it went again.
Yeah, out of all of our time today, though, I do remember reading in the blog that there was going to be like a new one that's like a bombing run would come through the map or something. I don't remember the exact verbiage they used. I didn't ever see that one a single time throughout our playtime. We just kept getting fire sales. We had resurgence was the rarest out of all of them, and then the resupply one happened quite frequently. I think there's 2 more that I'm forgetting about, but I can't remember them right now.
So
they were all the ones that were in that flashback mode, basically.
The heavy weapon drop and the cash drops.
Yep. Yep. I see. This is the big question mark for me. Is like, how long will this mode stay around? Is this the game mode that's going to be like what most people play because they want to try out Vanguard and then they're done with it a week from now and they're going to go back to the old one? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of big question marks up in the air. But one of the things you said in your video, JGOD, that I thought was super interesting about the Vanguard mode, which you had mentioned earlier in the stream as well, was that obviously like using Modern Warfare stuff or anything like that is GA'd, right? Like you're not allowed to use it. Well, one of the things that you mentioned that you can't use is a heartbeat sensor because there's not a heartbeat sensor in Vanguard, right? And
pretty much. Yeah. It would basically lock it from the loadout if you want to use that loadout within it.
So my big question mark, and I don't even know if this is really a question for you guys or just a brainstorming topic, maybe Doug, you could speak to this, is like, if that's true, I mean, that would be such a fun game mode to play a tournament on. I know there's probably a little bit more RNG with some of these events that are happening every circle and stuff like that, but with the planes included, promoting Vanguard, like I can only imagine some of these Vanguard tournaments or these Warzone tournaments that are coming up are probably going to be under this Vanguard kind of game mode. And I think some of the pros might actually like that because there's no baby monitor or heartbeat sensors and camping in buildings as much. I don't know.
I agree with that thought. I like that thought process. I also think that something that people aren't going to think about when it comes to the Vanguard Royale is how much economy flow that all those events bring into it. So usually it can be really hard to regain, especially like when the circle starts to get smaller. But with the number of events you're getting and chances to have money, like that was one of the biggest things I noticed all day that we were playing is we never were out of money. If there was a buy nearby, we had enough to res, almost always could afford a new loadout.
Yeah.
Like there was cash everywhere. I think, Jigga, I didn't go back and look at our video footage, but I feel like we got to $2 million in the plunder game in about 4 minutes. Like it was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, we hit the million really quick, and then overtime kicks in, and you get a bunch. But yeah, in that plunder obviously scales a lot different.
Yeah, definitely. I think the next kind of big question is you had talked about money. One of the major changes they had mentioned they were bringing into the kind of new game modes and everything like that was that you couldn't buy a loadout in the first circle, right? Did you guys feel that? Did it feel weird? Did it feel barely any different? Like, what did we think about that new addition, JGOD?
I felt like for the vast majority of the matches we played, no problem. The last match we played, I felt like that hindered us, because I ended up pushing a gunfight with the Volk that was like a 30-round mag, and it was a terrible build, and I just got gunned by like a regular, like one of the other guns that are really good on the floor, and the gun was complete garbage. And if I had something else, I at least break even or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think that was the only time where I felt like, damn, I really wish we had a loadout with that $15,000 we have. So yeah.
Yeah, there were multiple points in time where we had, like, as a squad, like, upwards of getting around, like, 40 and 50K by the time the first loadout dropped in. And honestly, it didn't bother me that much, but like Jay said, that could have been the difference between a W or a L, and losing the sweep in the last game really hindered us at one point, because we just had teams all around us. We actually really needed Ghost at that point in time. That's something that I will tell people, is that since you can't get the loadout, there are UAVs all over the place, and there's almost always a fire sale or something going on.
Yeah.
And advanced UAV works the same way as it used to. You call in 3. Something that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about is that the UAV price has increased to $6,000.
Yeah, that's the same as what did they increase that in? Is that the new
Iron Trials, I think?
Iron Trials or flashback mode? I can't remember when they increased that from in Verdansk, but yeah, I don't know. I everything that I was seeing looked pretty positive. Okay, this is the classic. Let's take a brief second here. We're getting an insane amount of spam in the YouTube chat about 2 major things, and I'm gonna just
ban that guy.
Yeah, it's fine. We're just gonna let JGOD give a brief explanation. I know you said this in your video already. You can go watch his YouTube video on it, but let's have a very brief description or an answer to these major 2 questions, if we have an answer, which Doug and I both know the answer to this. Is there console FOV coming is the first question. The second question, do we know if stats are going to be reset, or is there going to be a different tab for stats for this map?
So
break it to him, Jay.
FOV, we only played on PC, so how the hell could we know? They didn't mention anything. I would expect to see it in the patch notes tonight. If it's not there, then it's not happening. And then in terms of the leaderboards, I'm not sure what's going to happen with them, because we had our 5 wins. one indifferent each mode. I went to go check the leaderboards, and our characters didn't have any stats. So I don't know if that's because they weren't tracking or they don't count on real leaderboards. But there was no wins that tracked. So I don't know if those are being stored on a separate leaderboard that isn't currently in the build we had, or we're just going to keep in the stats. But they've also put out tweets saying, hey, you know what? Look at your stats from Warzone. So maybe that's going to be like a benchmark.
Yeah.
And then, so I don't know. Like, we don't know. Nobody knows.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That is a very good way to say we have no idea on either of these things. In terms of conjecturing, if I was a betting man, I would probably bet we're not going to have a console FOV slider, and we probably will have a separate tab for stats for this map only, but I don't know that, and that's complete guess.
Yeah, like you just said, it's just conjecture and it's just speculation based off of, and it's really an educated guess at this point. But I'm not expecting an FOV slider for console. What I can tell you is that they're 100% working on it, and in my mind, with the way the community has acted the past 3 days, ever since Timinoy responded to somebody on Twitter, and then it just has turned into a massive snowball of just, I can't even put out a tweet without the intent. I mean, this is our YouTube for our podcast, and we've never had spam issues. The whole chat is FOV as if it's our fault. I'm going to tell y'all straight up, I don't think that there is an FOV slider coming to especially old gen consoles. Y'all can just hang that up. It ain't happening. Next gen consoles, I would say that I think that they are working on it, but the fact that we're still on the Modern Warfare 2019 application that the Warzone was running on, at least for us, tells me that it would require a next gen upgraded version of Warzone, which currently doesn't exist, for them to have an FOV slider. That's my conjecture about it. I don't think it's coming, and I do think they're going to have to make an announcement by the patch notes tonight, as JGOD is saying.
They're just not going to say anything.
If not, they're just going to leave it on us to deal with all the shit. Like, what is this, bro? I used to be a console gamer before I started all that. I feel you guys. Totally feel you. I don't know what to tell you exactly, and I really feel like half of the people that are complaining aren't even on next-gen consoles, and they're just going to complain no matter what. But I do... Trust me, we want you guys to have a fair playing field, especially since you can't turn crossplay off in most ways. And when it comes to the stats resetting, I don't think they are. Personally, me and JGOD talked about it, and then I walked away for a while. And when I came back, him and Sparrows had discovered that the stats had been there were no stats for them to track for R5 wins or whatever. And I think that may have already been. They deleted our account an hour after we were done playing the final game. So that could also be because they deleted the account, so therefore stats no longer exist. I'm not sure how that goes. But as of right now, the stats inside of the build that we played were the current stats. Like, you can see OP marked on the leaderboard, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think the big question mark here is, like, obviously, like, stats resetting will be bad for some people, like, or a lot of people, actually, people that enjoy looking at their old stats. I mean, I just don't know why it would be that big of an issue to make a separate tab, just like any other game has. If you go play Apex or you go play whatever, and they have Season 1 stats, Season 2 stats, Season 3 stats, like, why would they not just have Verdansk stats, Caldera stats? It seems simple. I'm sure it's harder than, you know, what I understand, but that's my general impression. But let's move on. That's a question that everybody will continue to spam no matter how many times we answer it. So the next big question before we get to the guns conversation, which we'll save for a little bit, POIs. I know you guys went all the way around the map. You played in a lot of different areas. Resurgence was kind of this mini royale that was smaller circles on the map, and then you played the overarching map. What were just some of your favorite POIs? What were some of the POIs that you think are going to be probably the hot drops? What were some of your favorite parts? You can start with JGOD.
I don't know the names of anything. So it's kind of a little bit hard. I think there was a part by the west side of the map. There was a building with like 7 different layers. It kind of reminded me a little bit of what's that? I can't remember the map right now. It's like the prison zombies map where there's just multiple levels, and you kind of just walk back and forth, and it's all tons of loot there. And we were just talking about, damn, there's a lot of loot, but there's like that bunker that was bugged in that area. I think that's gonna be a heavy loot area.
That was the Arsenal. Yeah, that was the Arsenal.
The heck is an Arsenal?
It was something with an A.
Oh, it is Arsenal. That is a thing. Yeah, that's the top. Well, that's northwest part of the map. Yeah, all the way at the top left.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Wait, no.
No, it was south of that.
It was at the
south of
south.
that.
It was the southern part. What
Southwest.
was the
How
southern?
about I pull up the map on stream?
Yeah, do it. Yeah, do that. Yeah, it was the southernmost like dock looking area.
It's on JGOD's head, but we're here for it. So there's the map. I'm gonna put it up in the corner on the screen, and you've got the west side is like H would be village area.
I think it was like H. It was
village
H
and lagoon. Was there water around it,
or D, somewhere around there?
Ruins. Okay. That HD area on the west side. Okay. How was Capital? I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, Capital's the new downtown." Blah 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 blah. Did it feel pretty populated?
That was our hardest fought W.
Down at the bottom of the map.
In Capital, yeah, we were chilling at the cap. You know what's weird? I feel like on the map in game, the Capital's up top. Am I tripping? I need to go back and look.
You are definitely tripping. That was the bottom right zone, and then we pulled all the way through Capital. And the area down there, I would not land down there.
Really?
I don't think it'll be like, no, there's too many buildings, too many different levels, totally congested. You're gonna be going door to door, like with shotguns. You're gonna be I would avoid that entirely. Personally,
if you could buy your loadout immediately, I would definitely land there. But since you can't, like we were just running around getting into gunfights with our ground loot, like he said, he had a Volk, I had an AS-44. It didn't go so well for us.
Interesting. I know based on the videos I saw, let's see, what is this? Power plant area seemed okay. Didn't seem like super high density loot. Sub pin seemed way too open. L, and then yeah, Arsenal. I'll be curious. I want to go check out that. What did you say? D ruins and the village area over here on the left side of the map. I didn't get I think I saw y'all's gameplay on that. I didn't see pretty much anybody else's. So this will be fun. I mean, this is going to be a map that everybody's going to explore, find their own favorite spots to drop. I do like everybody's talked about this, but the POIs are kind of wrapped all around the circle. Did you guys go up to the peak area at all, like middle of the map on F?
I didn't.
I did. When I was loading into, whenever my internet dropped, when we were trying to get our first resurgence game and I had to come back, I did load back in. I ended up in Sally's at Dog's lobby. I remember he kept sniping me, and we were all just chilling, waiting on the game to start up at the peak. And the peak actually has a hole in the center of it.
Yep.
It's got holes on the left, right side. Like you can actually go into this whole chasm area. And I remember something that like stuck out to me is during that story trailer, they showed Butcher, the main guy or whatever, the announcer walking up to that German bunker or whatever and like lifting it up, and I saw that exact same bunker like texture asset down in that peak area. So I'm keeping my eye on that. But other than that, that place is kind of sketch. There's not a whole lot of cover for you.
Yeah, so I know it's like the highest point on the map. I saw, I think it was Carnage's video where they basically like glided down with their parachute all the way from the top of peak like to the beach side. Like you can go pretty far with that glide. But one of the interesting things I saw in y'all's videos was that even though you have kind of this center ground, it might have been Ice's video, but you have this kind of center of the map high ground. It's not like this big sniping perch because there's actually like a low-hanging fog that kind of like drapes over the map. It makes things kind of hard to see. And then of course the palm foliage is pretty bright and heavy obviously at the top of the trees. I know you guys took a lot of fights and won a lot of games. So did you notice the difference in like the tree size? I think that was a big point of concern for a lot of people, was that the actual tree trunks didn't really provide any cover. Is that good, bad? Didn't really seem to make a difference?
I think there was only one point where I ever stood behind a tree, and that was at the one of our first quads win. And I had the most wanted in zone 7 or whatever. We got dug back.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Where's the loadout?" He lands, breaks his legs because the winning animation kicks in, so he can't fully shoot.
That's amazing.
You watch the clip; it's in there. But yeah, that was the only point where I stood behind a tree. I started getting shot. They got third partied, and then I kind of was able to plate up. Gotcha.
There were some surprising moments throughout. I hid behind a tree one time and I died promptly whenever Swag shot me with his bar. I really thought going into this, and I still do, I think that it's much better when it comes to like foliage and stuff. Everybody was worried that since we're in like a jungle type biome, that we were going to be having to deal with like big, like, just a ton of big luscious plants and stuff obscuring visibility and people being able to hide in them. But I kept going through all the screenshots and all I could ever find were ferns. I could never find like a bush like we have in Verdansk.
Well, I don't know if you remember when you were, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, but me and JGOD and Marksman and Sparrows had one guy who we found camping in what looked to be some type of a bush that we couldn't, like, we could hardly see him. And then there was a second time when Jay was actually had that most wanted he was just talking about. There was a guy sitting over there like in that same type. It's not, you're not nearly as hidden. Like you can't be a straight bush Wookiee like you can in current Warzone, like you'll see people doing during those 100K solo YOLOs. Like they'll have a riot shield out and you still can't see them in a bush. But there is a little bit of places you can, kind of get away with hiding. But I don't have an issue with it, really. I mean, if you're a solo out there and you're trying to just crawl your way into the last circle, you need all the help you can get, just a little bit of help. But it's not really, it's nothing to worry about. I just thought it was worth mentioning.
Gotcha. A last kind of question about the map, and then we'll talk about guns in a second, is I know there seems to be, a little bit less in terms of POIs that are named, but there was a lot of unnamed POIs around the map, a lot of buildings. Did you feel like there was more or less open space, more buildings, less buildings? I know I heard Sparrow say it felt more congested maybe than Verdansk. What were y'all's general impressions? We can start with JGOD.
I felt like it depended on where the zone went. It felt different. Every match felt super different. Like every playthrough we had felt completely different. I don't know how the RNG pulled that off on the way the zones rotated. But one of the zones, we started at the top end of the map and it finished towards the bottom left. And then there was one where we started on the bottom right and then it pulled hard. Like it started, like the zone was on the far bottom right. We pushed all the way through Capital. I don't know. I guess every area felt different. There were some wide open areas, but then there was also congested. And then there were some bigger buildings that are kind of like train station where it's multi-leveled. And then there's a roof, and then there's a little bit of a higher roof. There's a building that almost looks exactly like train station that we ended up getting our first quad win in.
Gotcha.
Yep. I was going to say, like, when we were discussing the maps and like our favorite places that we played on, I was going to say there isn't a single place on the map that like I would detest. There's not like a spot where I'm like, ugh, avoid that at all costs. Like when I play Warzone on Verdansk, I avoid the Virgin Towers or whatever you refer to them as these days. The two big towers near Super Center or Superstore, I always avoid those because that place is just a death sentence for me. There was nowhere I felt like that on this map. I would say that I do agree with what they're saying about, I don't think congested is the right word. I think that there's not as big of rotations you have to make across just places where you just have to get lucky that nobody's looking at you. I would say that each POI is closer to more cover, but I would say that there is less overall cover throughout the map than there is in Verdansk. Instead of using like hard cover, they use verticality very, very well throughout the map in all areas of the map that we played. So like you wouldn't necessarily have to have cover. If you just have the high ground, you have a power position, but you also are susceptible. Like almost every single high ground had another high ground around it. So there wasn't really any big power positions, except for like when circle got really, really small on us and we had to hold the power position, which is, of course, I mean, you can't really avoid this. People are probably going to say that we camp to get some of our wins. But when it comes to a close in-game circle and there's like 10 buildings in and you're on the one that has a third story and only has 2 ways to get to you, you're going to camp that and hold that power position. So I think that they really, like, I was thinking that my favorite part of the map design was all of the stuff on the outside leading towards the inside. But really, it's how well dispersed everything is. Like, even the fields is supposed to be the big, wide open place. When I got there in game, I was really surprised by, like, how easy it was to move from building to building.
Super interesting. Well, last 2 things before weapons. I know a lot of people were kind of like, not spamming, but asking this in the chat, and a lot of people asking online. Performance-wise, Caldera versus Verdansk, did we see a major performance increase based on frames, based on graphics, settings that we were able to use? Was it about the same? What are we thinking, JGOD and Doug?
I felt like it was about the same. I mean, I'm on a 3080. I have an i9 whatever. It's not overclocked. I was getting decent frames at 1440. I didn't have any NVIDIA filters on, so I didn't lose frames from that. Yeah, I mean, it felt about the same as I normally play on Warzone.
Yeah,
you had people in your comment section saying that you had higher frames. than you usually have. People really pay attention. But
well,
I think I had about a 10 FPS boost, but it's also attributed to that I didn't have to run NVIDIA filters because this map actually has colors and you can see people.
Well, I think that's the thing. Most people were saying, like, based on all the timeline stuff I was saying, was that there was a small performance increase. I would probably argue that they just weren't using filters, and the filters take away somewhere around like 8 to 10 frames depending on your build. So it's like if they have an 8 to 10 frame boost,
well, 8 to 10% sometimes. Like,
really?
It depends on your build.
Yeah.
Like mine only takes 8 or 10, but I've seen people take like a 20% like hit from them.
20 frames. Gee whiz. Yeah. Well, then that's a huge bonus. I mean,
20%.
20%?
Yeah, dude, it's harder on some cards
depending
than it is
on
on
some.
others.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, and I think that's like that's a really big point, that although, you know, maybe the performance wasn't changed based on the way the games run, like not having to run filters is actually a massive boon. Obviously, because we'd rather just not run them and have a better frames and all that good stuff, but a lot of people can't run them. I mean, their builds don't allow them to run them, or it'll completely shaft their whole, you know, their whole PC. So big quality of life upgrade, of course, is the colors and the way the game looks. So hopefully that answers all
console players can't use them at all.
Yeah,
I'm surprised they don't complain more about NVIDIA filters. They really are game changing, at least on Verdansk.
Especially like interior buildings, seemed like the lighting was really solid inside buildings. There wasn't a lot of like shadowy corners comparatively. So
I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right. Every indoor area I was in, there was no dark corners. Like if somebody killed me from camping, it was because I didn't check my corner.
Yeah, and then the other thing, this is kind of just a yes or no question. Doug, I know we had mentioned last podcast that we were like, there's definitely going to be destructible environments in Warzone.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah, that didn't happen. I feel so dumb. I thought that was going to be like one of their like main points. All right, this is going to be a whole nother topic. So when do you want to get into the topic about the engine discussion that everybody's having?
Well, let's go ahead and have it now, because I think the gun discussion will be a long one too. But go ahead.
I'll do a quick side note, really quick. I was able to climb every rock I wanted to climb.
Let's go. I'm doing a round of applause for that one.
Really?
Every rock that I tried to climb, if you go look at the match you got DC'd from, we were heavily behind a rock, and I could literally mantle it the way I want. I didn't feel the same way I felt, but who knows? Maybe there was other rocks that are busted. So
Call of Duty tweeted out like a video of them climbing rocks today too. I guess I didn't really pay much attention to it. I do remember when you guys were playing your Resurgence game after my internet cut off and I was in there in Sally's lobby or whatever.
Yeah.
I was up on the peak trying to climb like a rocky slope, and it wouldn't let me like climb certain things up that, but I was like Skyrimming it, you know, like I was running up a 90-degree incline. So that made sense. As long as you can climb the ones that looks like you should climb, that's a massive W.
I think that you didn't notice is probably a good thing, right? Because like whenever we play Warzone and it's not that you're always thinking, oh, I can't climb rocks when you're just like running around. It's like when you go to climb a rock, if you can't climb a rock, it's going to ruin your day. It might get you killed. If you didn't notice there was rock issues, then great. That's a big win.
I would say that there just weren't that many situations to where, at least in our Vanguard Royales, to where we had to climb rocks. There's not that many places on the map that are built like that.
That's a win. That's a huge win, whether it's map design or they added the ability to kind of like auto mantle up the rocks. That's awesome. That's a huge side note that is worth mentioning.
Yeah, that's a big side note, JGOD. I didn't know you had tested that.
So
well, test
played the game. So Doug, talk about the engine. Talk about how, you know, we talked about the movement feeling like more like Modern Warfare, but let's talk about the engine.
Poor Charlie. Intel has accidentally caused an uproar of all the geniuses, and I'm not really making fun of any of you guys who actually are like getting on to this, but Charlie tweeted earlier, because I get what his tweet was trying to say. I don't have the exact, I feel like I should have the exact wording if I'm going to call him by name, but I don't have the exact wording of what he said, but he basically said that how it feels like they were hyping up all the new engine of Vanguard and the improvements, and that we were going to get the Vanguard improvements and the tech. Like the way they described it was always really like wishy-washy, but it always gave us, like on our last week's podcast, we talked about destructible environments. That was when I was like almost sure they were going to have, because that's one of their biggest improvements. But now Charlie's come out and said that it basically is like they're on the same engine. They didn't really change. And everybody is getting all up in arms about that, either number one, because they agree with what he's saying, and they think because we're on the Modern Warfare 19 application with Modern Warfare 19 movement, that means we're on the same engine. And that's not the case. That's not how an engine works. Engines can have the same movement while having improvements and differentiations in other ways, just to clarify for anybody out there. So one thing that I can promise you shows that we're on a different engine, or at least an upgraded engine of the IW8 we had with Modern Warfare 2019, is that you can strafe mount just like you can in Vanguard. So when you mount, you can strafe left and right. That is not available on any other COD game besides Vanguard. Therefore, there is something they have tweaked to the engine to allow that to happen. I can't think of any more exactly specific things, but I feel like even climbing rocks is one of those. I don't feel like those rocks, were just
No, I think that's more map design.
Perfectly. You think
I think
so?
that's more map design. They basically, because what, probably when they design the rocks, they start out with an area that you can actually mantle that probably looks like a bunch of boxes, and they just said, all right, cover this with some rock formation, and just make sure that the areas that you can't climb, make that like really terrible rocks that look like you should not be able to climb them anyways. I think they just had more design process versus I think when they did it in Verdansk, it was like, just throw some rocks on stuff. No direction.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But there's definitely, I can understand the debate, and I can understand why people feel bamboozled. Speaking of bamboozled, we're going to talk about anti-cheat in a minute, and that's going to really get people riled up. But I don't really know what to say about it. I'm very surprised because I've talked to Jay. I've tried to talk to as many creators as I could who I thought would have a grasp on it. And it's not that I don't think we had a grasp on it. I just think that we got caught off guard. Like we said, I definitely thought they were going to try to get rid of the current slide cancel meta, at least the way it works. Allow slide canceling to reset tac sprint, but not have camera braking be the main like a skill gap in the game. It seems like they wanted to, and they just fell back on it because they're already dealing with enough backlash about every single thing they try to do. So if they're going to do that, I could see them doing it later. But I feel like everybody's forgotten that, slide canceling is a exploit. Like, it's not, I know exploit sounds bad, but it's not meant to be in the game. It just happened to happen.
Sure. Yeah, totally fair. Really good update about the engine. Thanks, Doug, for that. Map design wise, I'm really excited about it. I know I saw a lot of like really intensive high ground spots that would be cheesy if they didn't design the map where the cover on that high ground spot made you have to jump all the way up on top of it to shoot down. I don't know. All of it looked really, really clean. Let's talk about the guns. I know this is a lot of big question marks up in the air. How do the guns integrate into Warzone? How do they feel? What guns feel good? What guns feel bad? And there's no answer at the very second to the meta question. We all understand that. But just from y'all's perspective and the guns you were able to try out while playing, which ones felt good and which ones felt bad? And let's start, JGOD. We talked about this before we even went live. The ground loot, some of it's horrendous, some of it's pretty good, but it's all based on how many attachments it has, right? And what attachments is actually included. So you want to kind of mention some of the stuff we were talking about before stream about how some of the base weapons might be trash, but you have to have the right builds on it?
Yeah. So I think what I was able to do is I kind of went in and I did the tutorial thing. I tested some stuff in there, and the damage values for the STG, the MP40, and the 1911, I believe, that are all in there, none of those matched what we'd either seen in Vanguard or we had seen in Warzone with the integration of the STG and the M1 Grand. Just the values didn't match. And then we got access to this pregame lobby, which was a quads lobby, so there was damage values. I was able to do my standard testing. Luckily, Doug was able to help out. I had a hero that jumped in and he helped me out a little bit. I think he was kind of curious what was going to be broken. So we went through and we tested a few different things, and basically I tested 7 or 8 different weapons, and all the damage values for like limbs, stomach, chest, neck, and head, and their ranges was identical to the base version of the Vanguard weapons. So basically copy and pasted, no damage changes. So like the same thing that happened with MW when it switched over to Warzone, pretty much everything copied over except for some SMGs had one less damage drop off or something like that. I didn't test every weapon.
Sure.
But the thing is that I go, all right, cool. Now that we know that that's a thing, we can kind of safely assume that for the vast majority of the weapons, if you copy the stats over, they're going to fit in. So that kind of helps out. But the parts where the numbers were different were with damage altering attachments. So that could be like fire shells, that could be barrels, magazines, vital, or any of those types of things.
Hollow point.
So hollow point, those did not necessarily meet expectations. So I think what they did is they literally just copied and pasted everything over, and then for all the damage altering attachments, they basically nerfed them. Because in some scenarios, like the Bren, a lot of people were gassing that one up would be godly, and the actual if you use the barrel and the mag, which should make it like OP and do like 95 a shot to the body, it does like 60 or something like that.
Gotcha.
Which is a huge. That's like 30% less.
It's a big difference. Yeah, it's a big difference.
So what ends up happening is in the battle royale, when you need to assume that most people you're going to run up against have 250 damage that you need to deal because they have plates, you're going to end up where it's going to require too many shots, and the slow fire rate hurts you significantly. So a lot of guns on paper automatically are probably like garbage just statistically, and then you have to try them with the like you would already jump to the damage rounds and stuff like that to test those out, and a lot of those might not even be viable because of the mag size.
Sure.
I feel like without even seeing your like or getting deep into like actual tested stats and stuff, I think I feel confident enough to say this, but I feel like rate of fire is king based on what we've noticed when we played. Like you originally didn't think the automaton would be that good, and then everybody's like, after the second game, everybody's like, oh, the automaton's cracked, and the NZ actually has a pretty decent fire rate, you know?
Yeah, well, initially, like even on my Vanguard list, I said the automaton was probably the first one people should level based off fire rate and the recoil alone. And it turns out that the TTK is kind of in line with the Grau, but you get way more neck and headshot damage because it's a Vanguard weapon instead of an MW weapon or whatever, I guess the way it's balanced. So it can actually kill faster, and you get a 75 round drum. It's like overall it ended up performing. I think that's going to be more of the noob friendly gun that'll be meta, but good players are going to gravitate towards something else that's broken.
Yeah,
comparable to like EM2.
Everybody's been tagging me in like Biffle because Biffle was using it. They're like, oh, the automaton's diffy. I'm like, bro, this NZ41 is diffy. Let me tell you.
Yeah,
this thing's hitting.
I think, you know, we talk about this all the time. It's like, what's going to be the meta, and then what's going to be the competitive meta, right? Like the tournament meta will be different from the general pub stomping meta for a casual player. Like the automaton seems like a gun that'll be more noob friendly. You can still get high kill games with it, all that good stuff. When it comes to a private match with all the best players in the game, you're going to see weapons like an EM2 or a Cold War AK that have more recoil, that require a lot more skill, probably be utilized more, but only time will tell.
Until we find the Vanguard equivalent.
Right, exactly. No, that's what I mean. Yeah, find the Vanguard equivalent of those weapons that have more recoil, because that'll be like a more high skilled gun at the high level. But okay, so of the guns you guys used, you mentioned a couple. Was there any just absolutely 100% no questions asked broken weapons? Were there any weapons that you were like, okay, this is going to be really good, but maybe not broken? I know there was probably a little bit of some exaggeration on the timeline with some of the weapons we saw. What were some of your first thoughts coming into that?
There's definitely some broken ones, but I'll let JGOD start.
Yeah, I think there's definitely broken ones. I felt like the PPSH was hands down the best SMG. I didn't have a ton of playtime with the other ones, but even in that pre-match, I was just like, they don't really feel like they're kicking. But obviously, you got to try them with Hollow Point and Vital, and then see if the 40 round mag on the Type 100 really gets you enough kills in like trios or quads, or you get caught reloading or something like that. So I think in terms of SMGs, those were about it. Tommy gun did not feel like it hit, but it was super easy to use. So maybe more like a sniper support. I don't know. In terms of rifles, the NZ was good. The STG with like the hollow point rounds, I think it's more of a sniper support, not as a ranged weapon. Trying to think. The shotgun, the one, the Ryan, or the
combat.
No, not the combat, not that one. The revolving
pistols?
Shotgun.
Oh, the one Legion posted, right?
Yeah, Legion posted that one. That one's really good. I didn't say it was the best SMG, Red. I know a lot of people messaged me saying, hey, is the Owen gun really nasty? I was like, only if you land chest shots. But if you don't, it has like bottom 10% TTK.
I used it and I was so disappointed with it. It felt like the opposite of how it felt in multiplayer, where it hits hard and if you hit your shots, they're going down. Felt like I had to super hit my shots. Like I needed to be hitting headies with that gun.
Yep. yeah, it's going to be that risk reward, and usually those guns just fall to the side, especially when they're slow firing rate.
Yeah.
And then there was the akimbo
Snake
shots.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, those looked pretty good, but I ended up like if you go to the I know you saw it probably, but I ended up with a 1-on-1 versus Booyah, and he had the snake shots and I had the PPSH, and I smoked them. But if he had a PPSH, he probably smokes me, you know.
Jeez.
So I think I might have just been right outside of the range.
Yeah.
Where like they're broken at the range they're supposed to be broken.
Yep.
Which if you've ever used those guns that are just completely broken that close, it's a little bit unforgiving. If you get right outside of that, you feel helpless.
Yeah, sure.
The machine pistols, 40 round mag in each, kind of crazy, you know.
Yeah,
akimbo
those
that.
clapped me super fast. I didn't even have time to react.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think the sniper, the car, looked pretty good.
Yeah, that's what
And
I
you
was
could do
saying.
no glint.
Yeah.
What the hell is that about?
Dude, that is crazy.
Yeah, I saw where Iceman posted a video last night. God, I wish I would have known that we could have done that about the top 10 guns to level for Vanguard. And he was talking about how he just doesn't see the snipers competing. But when we were playing together, Marksman and Sparrows were both about to cream their pants the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both were about to cream their pants.
It's a hit scan. It's a hit scan.
Yeah, they basically were just screaming the whole time. It's hit scan. That there's no, you don't have to lead the bullet. And I can agree with them, because once I used their build, I was wondering why I wasn't hitting my snipes. And it's because it's like literally like, it's like you have like a not really Swiss ADS time. I don't really know what to compare it to, but you have like an HDR level bullet velocity / bullet drop mixed with that. And with the way that the map is designed here, I feel like bullet velocity for a sniper is king over damage. And I could definitely see the Kar 98 absolutely just I don't think that they're weaker than the other guns. I think they shine in their own way. And I think that the reasoning behind that is because of all the different attachments and abilities that you can do to the gun. Especially like if you guys are trying to wonder like what is the top ammunition to use lengthened. If you're using anything that's more than close range, use lengthened all the time. +3 bullet velocity is not offered by any other attachment that I'm aware of, besides a barrel, maybe. And to me, at least, it seems like that's what separates the snipers from being to being hit. They were literally, man, if you go watch me and JGOD's gameplay, they were freaking out about that thing once they got the second build of it.
I did see that. So it seemed like the Kar 98 was probably the best sniper. You can add the no glint perk on it, which is interesting and absurd in my opinion, but hey, whatever. So you got the no glint perk.
You muted on Discord, Gojj.
I'm muted on what?
Discord.
Yeah, sorry about that. Anyways,
good.
So sniper probably best, or the sniper was probably the Kar 98 was probably the best sniper from what you guys saw at the very least. Seemed really strong. And
I think people just leaned into it based off assumptions. I don't know how much of an attempt people actually gave to the other stuff.
Yeah, and it's because of the sight that it has. That's what I was reading, or that's what I saw a lot of people talking about. It has the best default clean sight as opposed to the Type 99, which everybody says can be built to be better in every way than the Kar 98 if you have it leveled. But I hate the iron sight on it, and I also am not irons. I hate the default reticle on it, and I also am not a fan of that on the 3-line rifle either.
Super interesting. I'll be curious to see what sniper kind of makes its way to the front. Also, I mean, I know you guys didn't really use the snipers, Sparrows, and your fourth did, but flinch wise, did it feel like the Kar 98 felt like a normal sniper, or did it feel like the Kar 98 marksman rifle from Modern Warfare?
I didn't snipe.
You have any idea, Doug?
It felt like a sniper.
Okay, so it actually had flinch.
Oh yeah, big time.
Okay, that's good.
Big time. But there's also attachments now that you can reduce flinch dramatically. I mean, JGOD would know more than me. He's probably tested it in Vanguard. But like one of them that I use on a lot of my guns that I know I'm going to be in long range fights with is called the polymer grip, and it gives you plus 40% flinch resistance or something crazy like that. Yeah. And then there's also almost every gun that has that polymer grip also has a stock that does the same thing. And when you put those two on top of each other, I've really noticed a difference in that, but I can't really tell you how it's going to be in Warzone.
Yeah, sure. Totally fair. I saw a couple questions. Sniper support. From what we were able to see, STG seemed like a really good sniper support weapon if you built it right. SMG, definitely PPSH. Cool. All right, that kind of covers all the bases. Rocket launchers, were there any rocket launcher gameplays in the couple games you guys played?
No, we're
think so.
definitely still sleeping. All right, I don't care. I was arguing with JGOD all day about it because I was using the combat shotgun sometimes. It's not a one-shot kill, first of all, but with the buck and slug on it and built the right way, if you have anybody even missing one plate, bro, they are done. And the thing I think that made me feel that it's as broken as it is, even though it can't absolutely one-shot people like it does in multiplayer if they're fully plated, is that you can build it the same way we did in Vanguard multiplayer to have a wider pellet spread. So like if you even have 1 pixel of your screen on that character, it does the full damage. Like it takes 0 skill. It's almost like using if anybody in here has ever played Gears of War used to have what's called a sawed-off shotgun, to where if anybody in front of your screen was in front of you, they were dead. But if they were even 1 pixel off, you didn't do any damage. It felt like that to me. Like it takes 0 skill to use, whereas even the snake shots take a little bit of skill.
Sure, totally fair. Making sure you're in the right range and all of that good stuff.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think that covered most of the general questions that I had and a lot of people had. Let's briefly talk, Doug, I know you have this article probably up or close by about the Ricochet announcement. Anti-cheat announcement came out today about it kind of being rolled out in tiers in unknown time frames, and specifically going to Pacific first, not Warzone Pacific, Asia Pacific region. So I wanted to hear y'all's thoughts on the announcement, if you got a chance to read through it, and what this really means for the game and the community.
I can read through it out loud for everyone if we want to real quick.
Yeah, you can read
It's
through part
really
of it.
short.
Oh yeah, you can read through like the main part. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to skip their little intro about it, but Call of Duty Warzone Pacific. The main brunt of this is that they're telling us something they should have told us weeks ago. The server-side upgrades as part of the overall Ricochet anti-cheat program have been live in Vanguard and Warzone since the launch of Call of Duty Vanguard. Since then, #Team Ricochet has made several updates to anti-cheat security for both titles, as well as targeting cheat developers, account resellers, and making changes to its security enforcement policy. I can attest that they have taken down 2 big cheat developers, and we reported on it, so they're not lying there. This week, the new previously announced PC kernel level driver developed internally for Call of Duty begins its release. The driver will first launch in Warzone in the Asia Pacific region before expanding to other regions. This strategic launch approach allows us to monitor stability, collect feedback, and make any required updates before expanding the rollout. Additionally, information about cheating behavior provided by the kernel level driver will help enforce security for all players around the world. I'm not going to read through their FAQ, but I'm just going to let everybody know what the big problem here is. The way that they marketed everything about this anti-cheat is that it was going to be day one with Call of Duty Vanguard and with Warzone. Well, not with Vanguard multiplayer specifically, but with Warzone Pacific, day one was always their thing. Not day one rolling out to this region and then coming to this region later and then maybe to this one. Because the real thing that worries me about them saying rollout is there is no schedule. There is no schedule. They didn't provide us an update of when they expect it to be here. And this is just straight up like they pulled the rug out from underneath this. I know a lot of people who were even involved in that early playtest today who are just not happy about this and feel like this is like making, I don't know, I won't say it's making content creators look bad, but I've really been like on my soapbox about this anti-cheat. And it makes me look like a fucking idiot that they're just saying, oh, well, it's not coming yet. But it'll be there, and then one day, it'll be there one day. Well, how do you feel about it, JGOD?
Well, initially I was joking with Gojj earlier. I was like, oh yeah, that was kind of weird how they phrased that. They say Asian Pacific. I wonder, like, why didn't they just say Warzone Pacific? What's going on here? And then I Googled that real quick. I was like, what's actually considered Asia Pacific? And it does not include a lot of areas. It includes Oceania, Southeast Asia, South Asia, East Asia, and Russia, Far East, as well as, well, yeah, New Zealand in there as well. So
yeah,
it basically includes, and like, so it doesn't include any of North America. It doesn't include any South America. It doesn't include any EU, which are like basically the biggest playing regions. But like, so that's kind of really annoying, like to think that it was coming and it's not. But to be fair, those areas that they did target, like those have a ton of hackers. Like
Yeah, they
way
have the
more-
worst hacking
way
problems.
more than the hackers that we run into a lot of hackers, but even then that's a problem. Like personally, I think that the delivery and the messaging doesn't align.
Yeah, right. And I think it from a play testing standpoint or a testing standpoint, this makes sense because the population on those servers are a lot lower than the EU and NA servers, of course. I mean, EU and NA servers are certainly the most populated, but so this would be a good way to test it and make sure it's actually working. Number one. Number two, make sure it doesn't like blow something up, because if they haven't live tested it yet, they have no idea if it would some weird issue in the coding or anything like that could mess up the entire game. You'd rather ruin the smallest population of people. So testing wise, this makes sense. We just no, it's serious though. I mean, that's how
I know, but the
think about
delivery, the way he said it sounded funny. So.
yeah, suck it.
Gojj
Pacific.
just speaking how they would internally speak about it.
Right,
That's
right,
really
right,
what they
right.
would say.
but the issue really has been the transparency of maybe they didn't even know they were going to do this and they decided to, or
I don't
what,
think they
but
did.
We have no idea how long they've been thinking about doing the rollout plan. It would have been nice from the beginning to know, hey, this wasn't actually coming day one. And I saw somebody, I was talking to, I think it was one of my mods or something like that about this, and they said it was almost like the anti-cheat was used as a sales pitch for Vanguard, and then it's just being backlogged until it's ready to actually go. It was like this whole, it's releasing with Vanguard, it's releasing with Warzone integrating to Vanguard. Well, now it's going to be releasing in NA and EU, who knows, a couple weeks from now maybe. I have no idea how long the rollout will take, but I don't know. Kind of frustrating. Of course, the fact that we have an anti-cheat at all is a big win, but certainly doesn't
I think
favor
that
It'll
this
be
is a
attached
big
to the season 2 battle pass, I think.
Dude, I think that this is a big blemish though. Like when I
It's
first saw the
horrible.
news,
It's
when
horrible.
I first saw the news and got an email about it and got a message that said, "Hey, big update for the community. You might want to post this." I was like, "Okay." And then I like actually took a second to read it and I was like, "Wait, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? What do you like this is you can't tell us the day before it launches that we're not getting an anti-cheat day one." And they're going to say, "Well, the anti-cheat's there. It's server side." Well, let me tell y'all, there's still been cheaters on Vanguard, and it's a $60 paid game. Warzone is free. All right. I'm really, like, I feel like such a dumbass. I was talking to my real life friend who hasn't played Warzone in over a year last week. And I was like, doing probably what I shouldn't, and telling him like, "Oh my God, dude, wait till you see the Pacific. I've gotten to see this, and that." And he's just like, bruh, I really like to play Warzone with my friends before. And he's an Xbox player, not a high KD, nothing like that. And he said, "I just couldn't handle the cheaters." And I said, "Bro, you dealt with a lot of cheaters?" Because I never dealt with any until I moved to PC. And he said, "Yes, every night I got on, it was ruining the game." And I looked this man in the face and told him that that's not going to happen anymore, at least not for a month after it launched. And now here we are. Like, we don't at least give us a timetable. If you're going to pull the rug, tell us how far away the rug really is. You've already told us this date. You got, when you delay something, and they're not treating it like a delay, they're treating it like this was what they said they were going to do all along.
Sure. And
I just don't agree.
That's definitely the frustrating part about it. I know, like, they could at least use corporate speak and be like, it's projected to roll out weekly, into different regions or something like that. But unfortunately, it seems like they are very unsure of how long it'll take to. And they don't want to have to backtrack on promises, I suppose. But interesting news to say the least.
This could really hurt the Pacific, man. For this could really leave a bad taste in people's mouth and not even allow them to enjoy the game. And it's just sad. It's a really good map.
It is. Well, hey, I think we've touched a lot of the things I wanted to talk about today. I'm going to start opening up chat to questions. If you guys have questions that we didn't answer, I will take questions. You can type them in the YouTube chat, or if you're on Twitter Spaces, you can DM me on Twitter if I don't even know if my DMs are open or not, but if you can DM me, try to DM me on Twitter questions. I will read only the ones we haven't answered yet. Ask any questions in the YouTube chat, and I'll start bringing those up. Is there anything else while we're waiting on some of these questions to come in? Anything else you guys wanted to bring up that I didn't touch?
I was gonna just ask JGOD. Me and him have done a lot, which we should. We're invited to play something early. It's not a shilling. It's just we're gonna focus on the positive before we focus on the negative. What are the worst parts that you've learned about so far, or what are the worst feeling things do you think that need to be addressed with Warzone Pacific?
I think the actual just bugs in general, that's always what they got to figure out. Like, I don't think there's much. I mean, the like Warzone's a good game, so it wasn't like really hard to make a good game. You just reskinned it, in a completely different way. Like obviously it's a DLC. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they need to really change much. I think more health would be ideal because you get deleted, but
Yeah.
that ain't changing. It's too casual friendly to be able to get one shot in the back before you can react.
I feel like I agree with him. I feel like the only bad that I can really say is that they haven't, been open and transparent with their console community about whether or not there's going to be an FOV slider. They haven't been open and transparent with us about what's going on with this anti-cheat, and we were all counting on it. When it comes to the actual game mechanics and everything, I will say that there was a lot of visual bugs and things that happened today that probably need to be ironed out. Like sometimes the floor would disappear or something. Not that you would fall through it when you were diving in. Sometimes audio would get messed up, just those little things. But overall, the experience is a great one. And I think that my biggest worry after the first game was that it was going to be as broken as the Cold War integration, with just everything either being like DMR type meta zone again. And I think that after, playing some more time with it, and after talking to Jay about what the actual stats are and stuff, that it's nowhere near like that. And I didn't expect it to be anywhere near like that because this was made on the same engine and they're not having to port it all over. So I do have faith that they're going to get the little bit that there are definitely some broken weapons that are not where they need to be right now as in terms of balance. But I don't think it's anything that's game ruining at all. And with that, I think that we've covered the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now we can answer your questions.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions in here. First one comes from Hope. This goes to JGOD. What would you rate and actually both of you can answer this. We'll start with JGOD. What would you rate the balance of Vanguard weapons based on what you've seen thus far on a scale of 1 to 10?
I don't know, because you're saying 1 is a good balance.
JGOD, you're muted in
terrible.
Discord.
It muted me because I wasn't talking, I guess. It muted me out or timed out.
10 is good. I feel like 10 would be good on a 1 to 10 scale. So 10 is like great balance. 1 is like,
I don't know. It's hard to put a number on it, I would say, because I would say that probably 80% of the weapons that got added are not going to be used.
Yep.
But that's no different than what we've played.
That's always going to be the case. There will always be a meta.
So
as long as the meta is in a healthy spot to rotate through different weapons.
I'm more concerned about what we're going to see in patch notes. Hopefully they release them tonight, not tomorrow morning. Patch notes will kind of break down some of the mechanic changes that maybe we felt but couldn't explain, that are a little bit more subtle, or maybe we didn't get a chance to experience. Maybe the pricing stuff that we noticed on certain things that'll be included in these patch notes, and hopefully an EM2 and OTS nerfs. Along with maybe a couple other changes to Cold War and Modern Warfare guns, because if they leave them untouched, the OTS and the EM2 are still going to probably be the best weapons in the normal Battle Royale.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because the normal Battle Royale will most likely be like the main mode everybody plays, and for tournaments and all of that good stuff.
Just to humor Hope, I'm going to give him a number. I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Just because of... it's going to be a totally different story in 2 weeks once we really, really know. But as of today's play session, everybody was using different weapons and everybody was swearing by these weapons they were using that they had the best weapon. And that usually indicates to me that there's at least some healthy bit of competition. Whereas when DMR zone was out, it was DMR or bust.
Yeah,
very for true. For sure.
Very, very true. Next question. Did you guys get a chance to use the gas mask? Did the gas mask animation seem less, normal, same, better, worse?
I had one. It felt the exact same.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you went more through your the question was about the gas mask, right?
Yeah. Because I know that was one of the things they mentioned they were going to tweak to make it less intrusive, if you will. The
only time I saw you with one was when you were doing the most wanted for me. And I don't really think you were in a gunfight to be shooting at somebody to know whether or not it interrupts you from shooting or not.
It was a normal animation if I didn't fight. Yep.
But maybe it doesn't stop you from ADSing or shooting or something while you do the mask. Like it used to just fully pull you out of everything. I don't know. I didn't really were you able to see the difference in stun grenades? I'm sure somebody's going to ask about that. Somebody's also going to ask about
it. Felt
heartbeats.
the same. I had a scenario in that I posted where Expel had me dead. I was like 75 health, maybe left. Full plate's gone. I laid prone, through a stun, hard broke on him, the camera, and and it demolished him. He had no chance. He's on keyboard and mouse.
Oh wow.
So they work on
Sheesh.
those guys.
And what about heartbeat sensors? Because we didn't have. I didn't
didn't use one at all.
I didn't use one either. Yeah,
Nope.
I forgot to.
Somebody
think about
says
it.
JGOD has gameplay of using a heartbeat sensor. That's what I got commented.
Oh, really? Okay. And this was probably, it would have been in the resurgence
The
mode. I
Resurgence,
suppose.
yeah.
Okay.
Could have been in Plunder.
Could have
Yeah.
been.
Did you guys see Dead Silence on the map? Was that a thing?
Yes,
Yep.
I used it.
Did it seem like the same, different?
When I went back and looked, I remember when I first grabbed it, I told Jay, Mark, and Sparrows that it didn't zoom out my FOV. But interestingly enough, another thing they mentioned is that when you use stims now, they're supposed to increase your movement speed a bit, as well as increase like your regeneration or whatever. I remember I used a stim and it zoomed me out as much as the old Dead Silence would, FOV wise. But when I used Dead Silence, I thought it didn't zoom me out at all. But when I went back through and looked at my gameplay and like slowed it down, it did zoom me out just a little bit, like almost like 1 or 2 FOV. Whereas I used to think it did like 5, 6, 7, whatever number it was. It's definitely different now. I could hear my own footsteps when I was running across metal without tack sprinting. So I don't know how they've changed it exactly.
Yeah, that is super interesting. The next question I had was, we had very briefly mentioned this before, but I'd love to get y'all's takes on, I know, JGOD, I think you were 100% in the gulag, so I'm sure you probably have a positive outlook on the gulag. What do you think about the new gulag?
I think it's symmetrical. It seemed pretty basic. All the viewing area is on the outside, so you don't hear footsteps above you. I feel like the call outs are a little bit broken because I feel like whoever's above can literally give you pinpoint.
Yeah.
There's so many markers. Yeah, there's so many markers on the map where it's like, oh, they're next to the red thing or they're next to this. So it's easy versus if everything was just like gray or whatever brown, then it can't be like, oh, he's next to the green box. Well, which one? You know, I think it makes it super easy to identify where stuff is. So it's really unfair if you have somebody in the gulag with you.
I think it's I've always been against the fact that you can even do that in the gulag.
Yeah,
it's such an unfair RNG advantage, and I know there's got to be a way where they could put one member of each squad in a different gulag because we know there's multiple different gulags running at the same time. I mean, any time that I was the one spectating for them, I was calling out like a madman, and when they had me as a spectator and calling out the locations, this new gulag is basically like a little Red Riding Hood house in the middle. Yeah. It's got like 2 doorways and it's got like 2 windows you can go through. And then there's these 4 like red boxes at each one of the corners. So you both spawn in the middle on the Windows side. And I would just call out to Jay or whoever. He's on your diagonal. He's pushing your spawn. You're pushing his spawn. It's really, this is way easier to call out than the showers is.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Based on the gameplay I saw, it definitely makes sense. I mean, you guys were killing it when you had somebody else in the gulag with you. Okay, next question was, did you see if there was any sort of... I know you didn't really get a chance to play in any like specific custom games like this because you were kind of whitelisted to get into the certain modes. But did you see anything about custom games? Did you see if there was any new ways to enter into custom games? Was there any sort of like testing place, anything like that?
No, that private match tab was just the tutorial. The one option, no other options listed from what I saw.
Gotcha.
That just reminded me of the dark days before private matches were a thing when that really used to be how it looked.
Yeah, well, I am personally very curious about private matches. We'll see that tomorrow, I'm sure, if they're implemented right away. What if they changed anything? What's actually able to be played? Can you play the Vanguard mode? Can you play the normal? Just a lot of questions. I know somebody was talking about, I think it was Ziggy was saying, you know, basically he wants to, you know, uninstall Modern Warfare and multiplayer so he can just warm up and, you know, shoot bots in Warzone's client only. But I can't imagine that's at the top of their list right now, to be honest with you. Okay, let's see.
I feel like we'll finally rid ourselves of the Modern Warfare 2019 like being the app of choice when Modern Warfare 2022 comes out.
Yeah, sure. I guess that's fair.
We're talking about Ghost 2. Didn't you see the trailer and the skins? That guy's wearing the Ghost mask.
Literally a Punisher shirt.
Did you guys get a chance to use the Gung Ho perk? Did it feel as broken as it is in multiplayer?
I wish I would have now that you mention it, because I'm interested, JGOD. So if you're gonna calculate like TTK, I understand that TTK is so huge, but like with a gun like the Type 100, if you build that gun to be like a laser accurate, like to where you stack up on the attachments that reduce your sprint to fire time, and just completely negate that with gung ho. Like that's a super strong weapon. How would you
For hip firing.
put that? Yeah, but it takes away your sprint to fire time. Period. You would just have to deal with your ADS time.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is sprint to fire really only matters if it's slower than your ADS time. If you're ADSing, and if you're hip firing, is the only time really sprint to fire matters.
So are you telling me that sprint to fire is gung ho's not as strong as I've been thinking it was? Because my Vanguard loadout I've been running with it is I run gung ho.
Well, you die in one bullet in Vanguard.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Very true.
Yeah, no, gung ho is always good, but in general, most SMGs are fast anyways. They usually design weapon categories to like all be copy and paste. So like when you go to all the rifles, almost all of them have the same bullet velocity base, and then you stack attachments.
I still
same
am very
ADSs
shocked.
For the most part.
I'm so shocked still that they left some of the perks that they have in the game.
Yep.
I know we were all like thinking like no way Vital, but I mean it was already on one of the blueprints they gave us. We kind of knew that one. Gung ho, yeah, I could understand that one, but the one that like really sticks out in my brain is Frenzy, which is basically like quick fix, but it's on your gun. So anytime you down somebody or kill somebody, you automatically regen health.
Yep.
That's available on like the Tommy gun and I think one other gun. And then there's one that I didn't even realize until like later on when my loadout all day was an NZ41 with a PPSH. And towards the end of the day, I changed my NZ41 to have the proficiency. I believe it wasn't called flinch, but what it does is it makes anybody you shoot have increased flinch, which is just that was what we were complaining about with Frangible in the Vanguard beta, is that we hated that. And now it's on the NZ41, which is already a strong gun. You throw something on there that starts making people flinch, and it's almost like you're forced to run that polymer foregrip that I was talking about. Like, I don't agree with some of those things being in the game at all, and I do wish if they wanted to pick up guns that can't compete without those, that they would do it in separate ways besides some BS perk like that.
Sure. Yep. Totally makes sense. Based on the information that we have, I know a lot of gun stats and everything came over. We had briefly talked about a few episodes ago about this bloom issue that was in Vanguard. They recently made changes to that where it doesn't seem as big of an issue. With this, I assume that sort of like a minor bloom that we still kind of have is still in Warzone with the Vanguard guns. Like, what do you guys think about that?
I asked JGOD if he was going to test it that first night we were on earlier. He was like, no way it's in Warzone. I was like, bro, they got accuracy attachments.
I know. I tried. When I was doing some damage testing with Hero, I tried to like look, but I didn't feel like I was getting that same effect. Like I felt like wherever I aimed with the good bullet velocity, the bullets went where I aimed with or without. But I don't know. Okay. I mean, you need the right setup.
Such a weird thing to test. That's what whenever they first started coming out with their test thing, like Tony and Exclusive Ace about it, I was like, how are you guys getting it so pinpoint where your reticle is every single time you fire that bullet? But I'm sure they know what they're doing. I mean, they both.
Well, it's not hard to do. You usually just use a high zoom optic, and then you just hold your breath.
But most of those optics increase your accuracy, and they were trying to test it with the base guns
with
and
stuff.
Without.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm really surprised if JGOD tried to test it and he couldn't see it himself. I highly doubt that it is there. But at the same time, before we discovered Bloom at all in Vanguard and they heavily nerfed it, we had no idea what that accuracy attachment did besides horizontal recoil control, basically. And there's a ton of accuracy attachments in Warzone, and they've clearly gone through to like separate the useless Warzone stuff in those different attachments. So I'm interested to see. I'd like to see the stat gods themselves get together and figure out whether or not it's there, because I would shudder to think that they would develop such a system within the coding of the game without planning to use it in some bigger aspect besides Vanguard multiplayer.
Because even when I remember when we were messing around with the PPSH and they're all joking, hey man, you could use this as a primary or whatever. Yeah. Like I didn't even notice like it happening there.
Yeah.
Like I felt like where I aimed, my bullets were going with SMG.
Yeah.
I pretty much felt like that too. Also, we didn't mention this, but the PPSH build that we were all running has negative recoil. So have fun with that. It literally pulls down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, bro.
Oh,
And
interesting.
if you've played Vanguard, the PPSH has some of the most atrocious kick out of any gun in that game. And I think that was one of the most striking things when we first dropped into Caldera, is that we started picking up like the STG base and all this stuff, and we started shooting it. And I remember it being in Discord with Jay, and I was like, bro, why do all these guns feel like they have no recoil compared to Vanguard? But then I was using the NZ41 today, and I was going back and looking at my stuff, and I noticed it does have some, but it's definitely toned way the hell down. At least on like assault rifles, not so much on LMGs. Those things bounce like crazy.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of the ground loot weapons I saw you guys try to use, and it was like, holy cow, those things bounce like insane.
Yeah, that Bryn I was trying to use, that thing is terrible.
I got a chance to use the new rifle too.
Oh, that's what I was gonna mention. Those are the other two things I saw. I know you guys use the Cooper carbine, which is the new gun, and then also Doug, you had picked up the anti-tank sniper. That thing bounced to the moon every shot.
Dude, did you like that? Right after I picked it up was whenever we blew up a prestigious key in them. You might not have realized it from my POV, but Marksman got a collateral headshot on 2 people in the back of that vehicle right before I blew it up. That was such a flip.
I think we were all shooting that. All of our POVs are looking at that happen.
Yeah. That was comedy. What did you think about the Cooper carbine?
I picked it up once and I like shot it at a wall and I was like, this feels trash. The rate of fire felt really slow and it didn't seem like it would hit hard. But at the same time, I didn't shoot anybody with it. JGOD actually used it. How was it, Stat Daddy?
Which one? It felt good. I mean, it felt like it had a little bit of recoil, but you never know.
Until it's built, yeah.
Yeah, that's how most of the guns are, because all the floor loot felt like trash, and then, well, not like trash, but you know what I mean. Like, obviously, having your 10 attachments are going to be good.
Yeah, right. And that's what
the
we're
floor
talking
loot
about.
Comes with terrible reticles as well. Might I mention that Cooper that he picked up has like the freaking the one that makes it look like an anti-aircraft gun sight.
Yeah. I saw that. Those guns will be implemented, I think, mid-season. But I think that answers most of the questions. If we didn't answer your questions, probably because we answered it in depth earlier in the episode. So go back and watch the VOD. Anything else you guys want to finish with that we didn't mention that you wanted to just say at the last second here before we close out the episode?
There were so many things that we just quite didn't get to pick up on today. It felt like time went by so fast, especially once we got in the games. One thing I didn't get to test out was the mollet, like throwing a fire.
I did it in water when we were in the pregame, whatever, and it didn't look like it would be used properly.
Did like it at least smoke?
Yeah.
It smoked, but it was like see-through.
Interesting.
Oh my god. And then the other mechanics we didn't specific, and somebody said it's on. You said Jowo has footage of the heartbeat.
Yeah, he said he has the heartbeat
and resurgence.
I feel like it would be blowing up the internet if it had the battery life thing that everybody was speculating about.
Yeah, I think it probably. I would imagine they just nerfed the range. It went from 50 meters down to 35 or 40.
Yeah,
it's still so strong.
We can take a look at it tomorrow if he didn't say anything on. Like, if he didn't say anything about it being different, then it's probably just range.
Yeah, and JGOD said that stuns feel the same to keyboard and mouse people. So in Vanguard, if you guys didn't know, if you get stunned, at least on controller for me, it feels like it's completely stops me from moving, but I'm allowed to aim and spin in circles and shoot people and stuff. According to JGOD, when he stunned Expel, another content creator, that he was just basically trapped. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't aim.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what I'm allowed to say about this, but I expected them to tell us whether or not we were allowed to talk about it yet. But I will say that I do believe, I'm not sure yet, that we were playing on an older build of the game. So that may not be how the game plays on launch day when it comes to balancing the other weird stuff we talked about with plane UAV. Like, it could definitely be a different experience.
Tomorrow.
That was something. Yeah, it could definitely be a different experience tomorrow.
Interesting. Yeah, that is. I know you had mentioned something about that, but I didn't know how much we could talk about it. I'd be curious to see what the changes will be.
Yeah, like the last question that everybody else has been asking, and I've seen a lot of, and especially everybody that we played against today wanted to make sure that the anti-cheat was on because JGOD was killing him with his Cronus. was whether or not Ricochet was active while we were playing. And number one, based on their announcement today, no. Number two,
no, Ricochet's been in since Vanguard, but the kernel level,
side, the kernel
level thing is not, because I think you have to download the specific driver. Like, it's going to be another app that you have to run when you're playing the game.
Gotcha.
We didn't have to do that.
I think it comes with the download of the game, but then it only runs when the game is active. It's just it definitely wasn't on today, because when even in their most recent blog, they say that when you load up Call of Duty Warzone Pacific for the first time, or whatever, however they choose to say it, that you will be the Ricochet anti-cheat logo will appear, and then they clarified that it will only be running while your game is running, and when you turn the game off, it turns off. I definitely don't think it was running today, which explains why JGOD, JGOD, and Diaz Biffle and everybody else were able to play with us.
You're so dumb, Doug. Well, anyways, thank you so much, JGOD, for coming on to the episode. This has been a really, really good, informative episode. I know a lot of people are excited to hear more about the new map. A lot of people are hype about it. In a general consensus, we can all agree that it seems like a very, very good thing. A lot of great changes. Colors look amazing. So super cool. You guys got to play together, and obviously win every map that you played was a big
dominating win. That's like, dude, we basically won a custom tournament today.
Yeah, true.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Very, very true. Well, anyways, JGOD, thanks so much for hopping on the episode. I guess let's finish with, where can people find you? I feel like everybody knows you at this point, but just plug your major socials before we close it out.
Yeah, I'm just JGOD on most of my socials, or more JGOD is my second channel, or JGOD_gaming, because somebody doesn't use Twitch still has JGOD apparently. And then JGOD
on Twitter. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, hey, go follow JGOD. He put out some great gameplay with Doug involved and some without Doug involved on his more channel. I watched all of it beforehand, and Doug, you were able to put up a good bit of gameplay as well. So, Doug, tell everybody about your YouTube. You've been pumping out some great content on YouTube recently, Doug. You did a Halo campaign, gameplay that's been popping off. You did that massive review because you got early access to the Halo campaign. Plug yourself, Doug. You've been killing it, man.
I appreciate it, my man. I need to get some sleep. You guys can find me on Twitter at Dagnabbit, where I shill for COD all the time. You can find me at Modern Warzone, modernwarzone.com. We've uploaded 5 articles today. I only tweeted out about one of them. So if you think you're missing anything that we may have covered in today's video, feel free to go to the website and check it out there. We do this podcast every single week, usually on Thursdays, but when we have like big stuff like this today, obviously nobody's taking the time to listen to a podcast or record a podcast tomorrow when Caldera itself is out. So other than that, you guys just I would really appreciate it if anybody who is here leaves a like on this video, subscribes to the Modern Warzone Weekly YouTube. We're really trying to grow this. We love doing this for the community. Thankful for people like JGOD, Exclusive Ace, True Game Data, all of them coming on to help bring more exposure to the channel. Because I really do think that open conversations like this help. Like right now, it almost feels like there's an army of pitchfork people screaming FOV. And I feel like when you actually sit down and talk to them about the things going on that may be causing issues with that, I think it helps a lot. And just to close out my last statement, people always say I don't say anything bad about COD, and I kind of feel you, because it is my livelihood. So I definitely try not to roast them as much as I used to. But I will say, I haven't tweeted it yet, it's pretty obvious from the camos we've shown so far. There's no zombie camos or zombies reticles available inside of Warzone Pacific at the moment that we saw. And I was talking to Maverick about it, and he was like, oh, well, they'll probably come later the same way they did with Cold War. Well, I don't think that's the case. And I'm going to be straight up honest with y'all. I'm not sure that they will come to Warzone this time around. Last time when we had Cold War zombies during the Season 1 blog update, when we got the whole boat landing and everything else about zombies, they straight up told us that at first we were going to get emblems and calling cards, and then later they would add the camos, that right now they weren't coming. They haven't said a damn word about zombies camos this year.
To be fair, that was the day of the update. So we might get in the patch tonight.
Oh yeah, you might think they would say something like that, like they'll be coming later. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That could definitely be the case. I just was surprised to not even I don't know. This is my first time playing early.
I assumed it would
builds.
be there. I thought they would have seen from the last time and been like, you know what?
Let's have this done.
Let's just slap that in there. It's a cosmetic. Cool.
Especially as bad as zombies is right now, you don't need to give those people any more reason to be angry at you. But that's the end of my closeout. It's always way too much longer than it be. But Gojj, you did an absolutely wonderful job today, being like an interview type for us, bouncing questions back and forth off of us. I appreciate you keeping me straight.
I'm a plebeian. I didn't get a chance to do it earlier, so it was a blast kind of being the interviewer this time for both of you guys who got the early access. But I'm excited to play tomorrow. I'm GrandmasterGojj on all major socials. You guys know who I am at this point. I'm going to be casting an insane amount of Warzone tournaments within the next couple months, so I'm going to be playing so much of Caldera to know the map better than anyone. Putting out YouTube guides as well on POIs and all of that good stuff. So follow me on all major socials, GrandmasterGojj on everything. Started a brand new long form channel to help out my YouTube algorithm, and so far so good. So keep an eye on that channel as well. That's all I've got. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the episode. One more time, thank you, JGOD, for popping on, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Cool.
Peace. What a great episode.